The number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm Patrick Cristiano, your host, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, a website for theater buffs in New York City and the Hamptons. And we cover Broadway and off-Broadway theater, as well as social events in East Hampton and New York City. And today I have a really special guest. I'm really glad to have you, the president of Silver Cup Studios, Stuart Suna. Thank you, Stuart, for coming. It's my pleasure.
Well, Patrick, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here and really in the historic LTV studios.
Well, thank you, because you have some pretty cool studios yourself, and I want to talk a little bit about how it all came into being. It's really interesting that you made your first visit before your father bought the place.
Right.
Harry is his name?
Harry, right.
And you and your brother, Alan put it together, but you actually had an experience there as a Boy Scout, is that right?
Never made it to the Boy Scouts, but basically as a Cub Scout growing up in Roslyn, Long Island, which is 80 miles from where we are right now. Had a tour of this old Silver Cup bread factory in Hi-O Silver, and that was they were sponsors of the Lone Ranger actually. And they give you a little loaf of bread when you left. I had no idea that later on in my life we'd come back and buy the very empty, bankrupt Silver Cup bread factory to convert into Silver Cup Studios later in my life.
But your father, he worked in steel, what was it?
Sheet metal.
Sheet metals, and he already was doing a lot of work for the city, and he'd already started buying buildings and renovating them.
He was one of the largest sheet metal contractors doing air conditioning ductwork for New York City in the subways and big buildings. And interesting enough, like you were struggling earlier on with my name Suna. Suna was originally Polish and was Syna, C-Y-N-A, which the way he wrote his script, they said it in English, it's S-U-N-A. And there were 8 brothers who were Smiths. There were Diamond Smiths, which is Suna Brothers on 47th Street. There were Plumbing Smiths and Tin Smiths. So he became a sheet metal contractor. And as we were also getting into the real estate development business, buying old industrial buildings,
right,
old residential buildings, and renovating them, the old Silver Cup bread factory was available for sale in 1979 when New York City was really in a real deep recession.
Yeah, I remember it actually. And go ahead.
And so I remember I was still in architecture school and doing a tour of the building with him and the building super, and you still could smell the old flour and the bread, even though it had been closed. It closed in '74, so it had already been closed for 5 years. And it was like the building was a giant machine. It was a factory built over 30 years. So we'd heard rumors that NBC had looked at maybe buying the buildings, make studios. That was the germ of the idea for later on in our life. Initially, it was just an industrial redevelopment.
Well, you were the one that heard the rumors, correct?
I heard that from the caretaker for the bank was actually the building super. His name was Joe Zabo. He was a super for the Silver Cup bread factory.
So correct me if I'm wrong, your father originally thought about buying it, but he didn't really think about making them into movie studios.
Correct.
He thought about, what was the...
Well, we moved our sheet metal factory.
That's what he was doing. But then he couldn't move everything because of the unions.
We had 2 companies, both local 28, and they both had different union work rules, so we couldn't move them both there together. So we just had one there, and we wanted to figure out to do with the rest of the building.
So you had more space than you had anticipated. So now you had to figure out what to do with it.
Correct.
And you had been there as a Cub
I was there
Scout.
dreaming as an architect, and my brother was also an architect up in Boston, worked as an architect, my brother Alan. My sister was a painter and also in fashion design. She also had her vision, and my younger brother Andy.
Oh my God.
So we have a lot of different people involved in sort of the family.
So everyone had
dynamics.
a little something they thought that could happen with this space, right? And you told them what NBC was thinking
Well, I just saw
about?
that we had this idea, and then we started looking at building studios. We started interviewing all the professionals and the consultants and the clients from the West Coast. And if we really built what they all said we should build, we would have been bankrupt a long time, because everybody wants a Rolls Royce, but they only want to pay for a 20-year-old beat-up Ford.
Okay.
So we started renovating the existing factory space with beautiful, grand spaces, and making them into sound stages without raising all the roofs and without. So the people, what they want is protection from the weather, just like here in this studio. They want electricity, they want air conditioning, and they want some peace and quiet. Outside noise.
Quiet's a big one, right?
It's a big one, but there's not, again, to make it super quiet is very expensive. So we have different studios have different, what they call NC criteria.
So some of your studios are more soundproof
Much more
than
quiet
others?
than others.
Because I read the interesting little tidbit when Woody Allen shot there, he was amazed about how quiet it was.
Right,
When
it was
you
Purple
open
Rose of Cairo in the early days, and they were jackhammering outside, and these big elephant doors, they call them. He couldn't hear anything outside.
And
But
he was really surprised
very-
when
very
you opened up the
surprised,
things and showed him
Right.
what you had done. So you guys, your vision came through. More than the others or not? Did your brother?
Well,
your brother kind of thought the same thing too, right?
It's a work in progress. I mean, it continues. I mean, so sometimes it's friction, sometimes it's inspiration. We work well together as a team. My father always thought that we'd work well together as yin and yang. So like, just because you don't agree doesn't mean you don't get it done.
That's cool.
The right way.
So your father had a lot to say that
He brought a lot to the table, but unfortunately he passed away in 1992, which is quite a while ago.
Sorry. Yeah, it's a while ago.
And he would be very proud of us today.
But now you founded the place. Is it 1982 and opened it around 1983? Am I right on these dates?
So yes, we opened in 1983.
And your first thing was a Dove. What was it?
Cool Whip. So we thought we were building studios for TV shows and movies. And it's really commercials were really our main business for the first several years. So Cool Whip with Betty White was our first commercial. Then we had Jell-O. And we also did a lot of Bill Cosby commercials for Kodak and Jell-O. But we were doing some movies on the side, were more the cover sets, whether it be for Romancing the Stone or Broadway Danny Rose.
Cover set. What's that mean?
Cover set means like when it's raining outside, like today. They want to have cover from the rain. And they come in to do some bedroom scene, like when Harry Met Sally.
Right.
A lot of that was shot on location in New York, but when they want to come in, their bedroom scenes or some of the scenes in a house are inside a stage, so they can get out of the bad weather.
No, got it.
And a lot of TV shows about New York, whether it be Seinfeld or NYPD Blue or Friends, were all shot in LA. And they would come to New York for the location shots, which is the beauty shots outside. And a cover set is where the weather wasn't working, the timing didn't work out, so we can continue. We got all our people here, we can shoot inside.
That's cool.
They were small pieces of the whole business.
And so when you originally thought you'd do films and you ended up finding out you're doing commercials as the bread and butter, but we got back to you did a lot of films too, didn't you?
Well, it was an interesting how it all sort of morphed and changed over a period of time. Commercials were spending much more money per day on equipment. They're getting very lavish because there's a whole markup system with the advertising world. And the movies were so cheap, but New York City was still more expensive to live and work in than anywhere else in this country. We're like at least 10% more expensive than LA just for quality of life and living and everything else. So over the years, we were doing lots of movies, but not big movies because they were shot in the West Coast. We had Sex and the City and Sopranos, which were two low-budget cable shows for HBO,
right,
which really helped save HBO.
Big hits, yeah.
Big hits. They had no idea what they had, when they started them.
And when they started shooting them.
The networks turned them all down, and it really grew. Each year they got bigger and bigger and bigger. So what I mean by bigger, you take like Uncle Junior's and Sopranos.
Do you remember what year that was?
No, I'm not going to try and guess,
Okay,
especially on TV.
The only reason I'm asking though is because it's kind of like it was almost the beginning of cable television really getting big when they stepped into those shows.
So that's why I could guess it'd probably be in the late 80s, maybe the early 90s, because the film tax credit I'll come to is in 1994.
Right.
So basically, like Uncle Junior's house was just his little kitchen and little table, and the next year he got a dining room and a living room, and the next year because they need more scenes and more places to shoot. And then as the families got bigger, then you get an upstairs, you get downstairs. Sex and the City was the same way.
Right.
So those two HBO shows, which are very independent from each other, really grew and started to change a lot of the, I'll say, the depth and breadth and the diversity of the industry itself. I don't mean diversity ethnically by people, but just as far as how things were produced. They found cable could really make a lot of money.
Right.
And could give a new rebirth to HBO. So around that time, we were also working together. I co-chaired a couple of different task forces to try and come up with a tax credit to help balance out why New York is more expensive than LA. Because in LA,
is that the big problem?
That's a big problem because New York is expensive, but in LA, they have what's called the post-60s. So all the pension and welfare benefits for all the union crews get paid out of the residuals from the repeats, the digital, and the VCRs, and all those other money.
The producers' residuals?
Everybody, all the residuals for all the crew.
Oh, okay.
So that's about a 20 to 24% cost to labor.
Right.
New York, you paid it all up front. So, so the networks or the studios, if they had a major success, make $100 million or $1 billion, and they kept those extra profits. It wasn't, but the East Coast and West Coast had different rules.
Right.
So we wanted to try and see if we can even it out a little bit. Tax credits were first created by Canada in the early days, trying to get more business up there.
This is fascinating.
And then some states like Louisiana created some very generous tax credits. So we created ones here in New York in 2004 to try and really expand the real business, both for independent low-budget films and for TV work and big-budget films. But it was only for the blue-collar workers, which are and you're wearing a blue collar and I'm wearing a black collar, but neither one of us, because it did not include the actors, writers, the actors, writers, or directors or producers. It was only for the carpenters, the electricians, the scenic artists, the hair and makeup, and the people who were more what we call the blue-collar workers within that industry. And it's been so successful over the years since it was created. It was created over 100,000 new
congratulations.
jobs. It's the highest return on investment for any tax credit in the history of New York State. So basically, the state collects, when you're making a TV show or a movie, about $2 today from all the taxes. And if you first have to get your movie or a TV show up in the public domain, which is on the big screen or the little screen.
Right.
And then they audit you. And then they don't pay you out for like over 3 years. So they collected $2 for the promise of giving you back $1 3 years later. So you can sell that on Wall Street and make a lot of money. So Governor Cuomo has been a great supporter of that, as is the Assembly and the Senate. It's been really growing exponentially.
And you were instrumental in helping this get started in a way?
Yes, I helped write the tax credits and lobby for it, based upon another New York State tax called the Brownfields Cleanup Credits, which is another whole story about cleaning up, real estate development on contaminated sites. So I saw how successful that was and said, oh, we should try and do this for the film business, since I'm also in that business. And it worked really well.
I got it.
So I like when government really works well, unlike today sometimes. But when government works well, it's creating more jobs, creating more tax revenue to pay for more schools and more education, because education is really important.
Yeah, and a lot of people miss out on education and don't get the opportunities. It's sad. I agree. So now we got the place up and running, and you also got them tax credits later on. That's pretty, I just want to tell the people some of the things that you've shot there. You have 19 stages. Is it still not?
Right.
But you're in the process of expanding now too, right?
We have 2 facilities in Long Island City, Queens. We have Silver Cup, Maine, Silver Cup East, and then we have Silver Cup North up in the Bronx.
So Maine being upstate?
Maine being our classic.
Oh, your Maine
the main one where the Silver Cup bread factory was and the sign is.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And the next one we opened up was Silver Cup East, which is another steel factory right near the Long Island Expressway in the Midtown Tunnel. And then we just opened 2 years ago Silver Cup North up in the Bronx, up in Port Morris, which has also been huge and really busy since.
So how much studio space do you have altogether?
Almost 500,000 square feet of
wow.
studio space.
And how many studios does that break down into? Like there were 19 sound stages there. How many do you have altogether now?
Well, I think there were 9. Well, it depends. There's all different ways of counting the stages and the outdoor space and the roofs, because we've done a lot of movies up on the roofs. So we'll let it go with that. But it's interesting how studios grow or don't grow. Like there's a stage next door over here that was built here as a big stage. Fraser, the one right here next door to this stage.
Yes.
That I believe is now a storage facility.
You want to help us?
Because it was, the industry works where the talent is, which New York has a lot of talent, LA has a lot of talent, or where the tax credits are so generous that they'll pick up and move something to there, which is what happened in Michigan for a little while. Right. The tax credits go away, and all of a sudden the business is gone. So it's economics, but it's also about where the talent is.
And we have most. And I just wanted, some of the shows that you've done there on your stages are 30 Rock, Ugly Betty, Mad Men, The Sopranos, which we talked about, Sex and the City, Devil Wears Prada was shot there. And this was Billy Joel and Christy Brinkley did their Uptown Girl there.
What's really sweet, they were a wonderful couple. It's like when they did Uptown Girl over there and a few other music videos. And I just remember not too long ago, I was at Billy Joel's concert at Madison Square Garden as a guest of someone else. and he's singing Uptown Girl. And Christy is just a wonderful person and a friend, so I actually just texted her, like it was around 11 something at night, saying, it's really so sweet. I'm here, Billy's still singing Uptown Girl and talking about that. And I've just had a memory of you being here. She responds back, oh, thank you, Sue. It's so nice that you still remember me for that. And the person like, wow. Christy and Billy, both really good people and great New Yorkers. And great Hamptonites.
Yes, they're great Hamptonites, and they've done a lot out here, too. So what else? Now we have about 10 minutes left, so let's...
Well, I just want to say on the film business, something else I just was thinking about, because you like, smudging.
Yes.
So something else that's really important, the film industry really needs to become more diverse ethnically. And so with the New York Production Alliance, we helped create a new high school in New York City called the Academy for Careers in Film and Television. Now, this is a school that is part of the New York City's Department of Education. And
where's it located?
It's in Long Island City, and it's now right on the waterfront now. And what's interesting, there's like 90% of the kids are either Hispanic or Black. They come from broken homes or no parent at home.
Oh, how fantastic.
And within the first 4 years, they quickly rose up to being the second highest test scoring and just basic reading, writing, and arithmetic because the kids are so dedicated and inspired. These kids are now going on to win awards at the Hamptons Film Festival, Tribeca Film Festival. They enjoy their super talent. And it's a way of just really inspiring people and taking that inspiration and then motivating them into careers that now they're really helping diversify the industry.
Oh, that's extraordinary. That really is extraordinary. Congratulations. That's something to be very proud of. But another thing that you've done also, that you have been, you're a founding member and board member of the Hampton International Film Festival, which is like 26 years old now.
This will be our 26th anniversary coming up in October 4th through the 8th, which is Columbus Day weekend.
Yes, and just for everybody, it's Hamptons Film Fest, FEST.org. It's the 26th Hamptons International Film Festival, and you go to Hamptons, that's filmfest.org, and you can find the whole schedule of everything that's going on for the films.
So I also encourage all of you people to actually go to the website, and when tickets go on sale, we have variety from patron passes, founders passes. You don't have to pick your movies, you can just go online at the last minute, or buy individual tickets, which I don't know the date when they come online for the public. And we also sell hard tickets here in the Hamptons.
Right.
But we have a great history of selecting and showcasing films that are winding up being nominated for the Academy Awards. So
I've been
30 to 50 Oscar nominations typically each year in the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've been having anywhere from 6 to a dozen Oscar winners. And we're the only festival, I think, in history now. We've had the best winning film 8 years in a row. We've had best documentaries, a few of them. So it's really, and that's really thanks to our team, and especially led by David Nugent, who's our artistic director, and Ann Chesan, who's our executive director, has done an incredible job, is running it's a non-for-profit business, guys. It is not for-profit.
Right.
This is to bring art and commerce to the local community in a beautiful way. So, and we have student film workshops at both Guildhall in East Hampton and Southampton during the summertime. We have the documentary program in the summertime, outdoor screenings, we have educational programs, screenwriters. So it's really a big community-based, and I think I'm very proud of it. It's one of my children.
It's fabulous. I've come to it I think I've only missed 1 year maybe, because I was out of town doing something. But from the beginning, I've been, and the selection of films, they're so wonderful. And you know what else I really love are the documentary series that Alec Baldwin does over the summers.
This is our 10th documentary.
His discussions with the filmmakers and the people participating in them, I think it's one of the finest things that he does, actually.
And I really encourage people to see the documentaries. When you go to a festival, whether it be here, Venice, Toronto, whatever, don't just try and see the hottest films, especially for the people who are watching us now, who are not going to have their VIP passes, have to buy tickets.
Right.
Buy the tickets for the things that are not sold out, because these are things you will not see in the theaters.
And
the great films you'll see in the theaters, you can see later on in the theaters.
Exactly.
But to see the documentaries particularly, this summer we saw so many documentaries about parts of the industry I had no idea even existed.
What did you see?
Well, Bathtubs Over Broadway were about these industrial films that were made in the end of the 60s and the 70s for 5 to 10 times the budget for My Fair Lady, with real actors, and they made for John Deere, for Ford Motor, where they bring the sales team from all over the country together and celebrate and give them awards. And they entertain them with these little mini movies and commercials. It's like powerful.
Wow.
So that's just one of the many great films that I saw over the summer. There's lots of them.
Wow. Will some of these be at the festival too?
What we do, of the 4 documentaries that were shown, the one that the audience picks as the number 1,
be shown.
we will bring back to the festival, which we did with Icarus last year, which was about doping and Russia and bike racing. It was shown in the festival. We also had The Cove, which won Best Documentary years ago. Searching for Sugar Man is another one.
Oh, I love that one.
Right? So it's like,
That one
I
was
had no
really
idea these films even
special.
exist.
No,
That's
yeah.
one of the beautiful things about festivals, to go see the unknown stuff,
Yeah.
or the animation work, or the short films. Really
Now,
powerful.
what was your inspiration to be a part of bringing the festival and to be?
Well, it's interesting. There was a woman, Joyce Robinson, who's a casting director from LA, who wound up over here, and she cast the board of the film festival. Myself, Tony Ross from Nick and Tony's.
What was her name again?
Tony Ross. Oh, Joyce,
no.
Her name was Joyce Robinson.
Joyce Robinson, and she was a casting director.
Casting director. She literally cast the board of directors for the film festival. A whole bunch of people who had homes out here, had connections to the business. Unfortunately, she had to leave before the first festival.
Oh wow.
But she helped create. It was a great idea, and it's lived on. It's been it was a struggle for many years, but again, the staff and Anche San has just an incredible job helping us become a financially stable organization that we can now reach out and do more with.
I mean, I saw in the beginning that it was a little bit of a struggle, but it seemed really early on you went running, and it seems like you're really doing incredible
Right.
now. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, you're a huge hit, right?
We think so. I mean, it feels really.
I mean, I think you are too.
Right. I mean, the first year, the New York Times did a big 2-page story of these are the top 10 festivals in North America. And just our logo is 4 starfish, and we had
Right.
Steven Spielberg as our honorary advisor. And he literally challenged, said, well, which one of the stars in the sky of these 10 festivals are we going to knock out to become one of the top 10? So ego, we weren't even thinking that. We thought, like, we're just going to do it. And it's really grown. So we're well respected by the industry, because it's a great place to launch great films.
Yeah, and again, the dates are October 4th through the 8th, October 4th through the 8th for the Hamptons International Film Festival. We have about 5 minutes.
Oh, it's a long time. Those 30 seconds were taking a long time.
No, so what would you like to talk about in 5 minutes? If you wanted, is there anything in particular you'd like to bring up about the film festival? Anything that's coming this year that you want to talk about there?
Well, I'm not going to talk. I'll let David, or you should definitely interview David Nugent, who talks more about the programming for the film festival. I'm happy to.
I'd love to.
But I would really, just thinking more about.
It's 4 minutes. It's a long time. We got to.
No, I'm just thinking about as far as when I was driving over here and thinking about the Hamptons. So I've been coming here since 1981. As a young architect, I used to drive out here to race sailboats on the weekends. And
Do you still race sailboats?
I love to sail. And what's beautiful about the Hamptons, especially after after August, which is now in September, and the weather's starting to change. I love the mountains. I love skiing and the Rockies. But here, we're out sticking into the ocean. And I feel so touched by nature surrounding me, whether I'm on the beach with my dogs, or I'm sailing, or I'm just, it's a beautiful place. And as much as everybody thinks it's being overdeveloped, there's so many homes, so much of the character, to me, hasn't really been wiped out the way it's really grown a lot.
The way it could have been.
The way it
We
could have
were
been
very
wiped out.
careful.
Right.
To some degree, yes.
Correct. So as an architect, real estate developer, I do support development. I am a capitalist, but I do believe that we need to give back to community. That's why I like giving back to my non-for-profits, both here and back in the city. Being involved in community, I think is really important, and really protecting the environment. And I think for me, especially when we get into politics, I will be very careful I go with this one, even though we're sitting on a green carpet with plastic trees around us. But I think the
You have to
environment,
tell them it was plastic.
I think you said I can
joking.
smudge a little bit.
No, it's all right. I'm playing.
But I think one of the most important things when we go to the polls to vote is to protect our future, which to me is both the environment, and we don't need to be putting more dirty coal air, into the air, our water, our education system in schools, and really making it to really support the underclass, unfortunately, because right now there's such a wide gap, including out here in the Hamptons.
Yes.
And also our Supreme Court nominations, because the Supreme Court has a long-lasting effect. Not that any of us who are watching it could do anything about what the Supreme Court debate, but it's when we do go to the polls, it's what's really said is the American people don't even vote. I mean, for presidential elections, somewhere around 42, 44% of the available people to vote. And we got to be careful and really stand up for what we care about.
Yeah, everybody go vote. Go
Whoever you want to
vote
vote for. I mean, even you know.
Yeah, it makes a
But-
big difference when the people
Real.
show up to vote, yes. So we have a couple minutes.
Okay, you have more questions.
Well, I don't have a lot of questions because I think we covered everything I wanted to talk about. But I mean, I could think of things to talk about.
Well, I'll give you some, since you liked, I'll give you stories since you gave me some.
Oh.
So when we bought the old Silver Cup bread factory.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And I'm doing a walkthrough, I find this room at the end that was a
Oh.
walk-in refrigerator for the milk and the yeast
There's
for
a
the
cool
bread.
story.
Okay. And it was very dark, and I see a ray of light come in through the broken window on top of this walk-in refrigerator, and I realize that this corner of the building, which was 40 by 42, the footprint, and had 16-foot ceilings with 10-foot windows facing east, south, and west that were glass block and painted black, would be eventually my apartment. I ripped out the refrigerator over time, took out the glass block, recycled, and put a piano curve, and made a loft apartment.
And how many
like in
square feet
Soho.
was it?
Well, it went from 1,600 square feet to 3,000 square feet. And we lived there for 10 years. Our kids were eventually going to car service over to their 92nd Street Y Nursery School in Manhattan. But the apartment wound up being used as both an office or a set, both in Sex and the City, Big Daddy with Adam Sandler, Little Nicky. And it's very proud for me to see one of my creative pieces being used, still continue to be used as an office and as a set.
And it was originally a walk-in.
It was a walk-in refrigerator.
That's
it's
amazing, the
like,
walk-in
that was all
refrigerator.
gone other than the glass block and the windows, yeah.
Yeah, I read that. It was really cool. It was a cool.
And the sign, for those who don't, the sign used to say, Silver Cup Bread, the world's finest.
Oh yeah,
Big logo. So we like to joke as we played a game of Scrabble, and we couldn't spell out of the world's finest, which was 6-foot-high letters, and the S and the P of Silver Cup are 27 feet high. We were missing one letter. World's finest to studios. We were missing one letter. What's the letter we were missing?
S.
No, world's finest. We've got 2 S's
Oh,
there.
wait, I can't do it that fast. Tell me.
I know. I thought you liked smudging, so I thought I'd little try.
You
We had
caught
to
me.
make a U.
Oh.
We had it for studios, and that's how we wound up.
You smudged me.
I smudged you.
Thank you.
Very pleasure.